Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Preston here, and this is a preview and prediction video for Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes, the rematch. And yeah, and stuff like that, UFC 325, and yeah, man, and stuff like that, and I'm definitely looking forward for this fight and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And I've covered like what, like, I covered one. Wait, hold on. I think it's like one, two. I covered a lot of Alexander Volkanovski fights. Like if I'm thinking, I'm probably like around 3 to maybe 5 fights and stuff like that. But I'm starting to get there and stuff like that with how many fights I've been promoting of him, and stuff like that. But yeah, man, and stuff like that. But this is a featherweight title fight, in the UFC. And this and yeah, this is gonna be a title fight in the UFC. And Diego Lopes, he gets another shot, you know what I mean? And yeah, and stuff like that. And overall, I mean, like, he did fight not too bad in the last fight, but like, not really, like, it wasn't anything that crazy. I mean, it was basically all Volkanovski in that fight. Like the rounds were competitive, but all the rounds, maybe one round or something I gave to Diego Lopes, but all the rounds I basically gave to basically all the rounds I gave to Alexander Volkanovski, you know what I mean? And that's the thing and stuff like that, but yeah, man, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But this is definitely going to be a good fight. For surely looking forward to this fight, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And yeah, I know I said this 100 times, but yeah, because just there hasn't really been that good of fights lately and stuff like that, you know what I mean? So, finally we get some type of good fight, and yeah, and obviously we have the Shakur Stevenson fight, hopefully you guys will check that out and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And yeah, but yeah, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But yeah, man, and shit like that, but and yeah, but like basically, with Diego Lopes and stuff like that, I can understand why he got this opportunity and stuff like that, because I mean because he is a tough fighter, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And overall, he is definitely a tough. Sorry if you guys hear background noise and stuff, but yeah, he is a tough fighter. He does know how to fight. He does have some good striking skills. But yeah, man, but we back and stuff like that. But Diego Lopes, he definitely is a tough fighter and stuff like that, and he definitely knows how to utilize, good striking skills and stuff, And I believe, he also has, good, good grappling, like he has good submission skills, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And yeah, but I more seen him more just have good, striking, and stuff like that, knows how to move his feet around and stuff like that, pick his shots, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And overall, and stuff like that, with Alexander Volkanovski fighting a tough fighter like like Diego Lopes, you know what I mean? Like, at the same time and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like, this is still a tricky fight, for Volk, because like I said, Lopes still knows how to strike, you know what I mean? He still knows how to strike, he still knows how to how to fight, very well, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And that's the thing and stuff like that, but yeah, and stuff like that, but now I'm just gonna go round for round, and stuff like that, for this and stuff, with or actually, what these fighters need to do to winning this fight, So let's start off with Volk. What Volkanovski needs to do to winning this fight and stuff like that is that Volk just needs to kind of just fight how he normally fights and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And utilize great, striking skills on the feet, and then utilizing great, ground and pound skills and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Because in the last fight against Diego Lopes, like, I mean, there was definitely times where he like took him down to the ground and stuff like that, but he was more just trying to brawl with Lopes, and that's completely fine. I mean, overall, Volkanovski has great, striking skills and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like, like he has great striking skills, you know what I mean? So so I have none against Diego Lopes or Volkanovski when it comes down to his striking skills, and stuff like that, but when you're fighting Diego Lopes and you're going to be on the feet, it's like, it might end up being a war, but at the same time, it's like Volkanovski, outclassed Max Holloway. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing and stuff like that. Like he literally outclassed Max Holloway. And that's the thing and stuff like that. So that's a big step up right there. Because in those two fights, I mean, in the first fight, I mean, I thought Max won. In the second fight, I felt like that, um, that Max, or no, I felt like the first fight, actually, I felt like, that Volk won the first fight. I felt like Volk won the first fight against Max. The second fight, I thought Max Holloway won. But then the third fight, Volk clearly won, and stuff like that, and showed who was the better fighter and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, and stuff like that. So, I mean, in that kind of standpoint, I mean, he does have some really good striking. And overall, I mean, Volkanovski gave a lot of problems to Ilya Topuria, and we already know of how good Ilya Topuria is and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And that's the thing and stuff. Um, so yeah, man, and stuff like that. But that's the thing and stuff like that. But basically, yeah, and stuff like that. So Volk has a lot of experience when it comes down to striking, and overall, he has a lot of experience when it comes down to, to his grappling and, ground and pound, and stuff like that, and just overall being in the UFC, than Diego Lopes and stuff like that. With Diego Lopes and stuff like that, as much as like if he can try to keep this fight on the feet, he needs to get all as much success as he can on the feet and stuff like that, and even on the ground too, but mainly on the feet and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And that's the thing and stuff like that. Because because even with Lopez's grappling skills, I just don't know if I could like trust his grappling skills like that. With going against like such an elite fighter of Alexander Volkanovski. You know what I mean? And that's the thing and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But that's the thing, man, and stuff, so as like if this fight's on the feet, man, and if he could avoid all those takedowns and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like, he could definitely make it an interesting fight on the feet. But overall and stuff like that, when it comes down to my prediction for this fight, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? I feel like that Volkanovski should get the job done, like if anything, and shit like that, it should be just like how it was in the last fight and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But if not, I think it should be a stoppage win for Alexander Volkanovski. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. I just think Volk is levels over these guys in this division. And I don't know, man. It's just Volk might need to consider possibly into moving up in the weight, but I don't really know because I mean because Ilya Topuria is in the lightweight division. I mean, there's a lot of tough fighters in the you know in the in the featherweight, I mean in the lightweight division, and stuff like that, and overall like Volkanovski's legacy realistically is in the featherweight division, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And that's the thing and stuff like that, but yeah, and stuff like that, and yeah, you know what I mean? So overall and stuff like that, I just feel like Volk has the more of the experience, Also, Volk does have a good chin, and so, Volk has been hurt and stuff, but it takes a lot of power and it takes a lot of punches for you to hurt Volkanovski. You know what I mean? And that's the thing and stuff like that, because, and yeah, and not saying Lopes don't got the power and stuff like that. Lopes definitely does have power, and stuff like that. For sure, he definitely does have power, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But at the same time and stuff like that, it's just Volk is on a different level, man, and shit like that. You know what I mean? And it just there's a reasoning of why he's been just constantly, like been just, holding that championship belt. You know what I mean? Like I know again he lost to Ilya Topuria, but Ilya Topuria and stuff like that, was just kind of was way too strong for that division. He was literally running through everybody in that division. Now he's in the lightweight division, and he's already looking really strong in that division. But let's see how he's gonna do, and shit like that, heading on and stuff. But yeah, and stuff like that, but I'm just saying, man, Volk is that dude, man, and shit like that. He has great grounded pound. He got, he's a strong dude, and stuff like that. Usually whenever he fights people, usually like, he usually is kind of more of like the smaller fighter and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Whenever he fights people and stuff like that, So, so that's the thing and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And yeah, so yeah, man, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So, this is definitely gonna be a good fight and stuff. Like this is definitely gonna be, a good, build up of a fight, and stuff like that, because I mean, because any type of fights that's on, I mean, is gonna be entertaining and shit like that, you know what I mean? But overall, let's be for real, Volkanovski is gonna get the job done and stuff. And overall, I feel like he's gonna get the job done by a stoppage, in my opinion. I think he's gonna want to make a statement in this fight and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And he's gonna take and he's gonna get Diego Lopes out of there. I'm gonna say it's gonna be around like round. It's gonna be around like the later rounds, like round 3. I'm gonna say round 3 or round 4. But I'm gonna go with round 3 because that's where a lot of stoppages happen is round 3 in the UFC and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Um, yeah. So I'm gonna go with the round 3. I'm gonna say a round 3 stoppage from ground and pound from Alexander Volkanovski. So that is my final prediction. I got Alexander Volkanovski by a 3rd round stoppage, and yeah, and stuff like that, But and that's it. You know what I mean? I got Volt by a stoppage. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'm Preston. Peace out, man.